everybody. Welcome to Bound to Truth. This is Christopher Lopez. Hope you're having a great Sunday. I am, except Saturday, because I had some power outages because of the wind. But I can't complain because my boy, Skratch, had hurricanes that hit him, so I can't whine about anything. Jonathan's not going to be on with us today. Where he's doing some other outside investigation research in regards to Scandia and Paulsbo that we're going to eventually talk about more in depth with the interviews and the people that want to come on to talk about the things and the strange that's going on there. And I'll tell you this, it's really deep, it's really dark, and a lot of people need a lot of help out there. And a platform, just like we're presenting today with Skratch again for our part 3. But before we jump into it, how do you reach us? How do you subscribe? How do you hear my lovely, sexy voice that doesn't match my beauty? It's going to be boundtruth34@gmail.com, as well as going to be on Facebook, X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, Buzzsprouts, and other platforms as well. Please hit the subscribe button. Like Skratch here is going to become on for part 3. The platform is yours, and we want you to have that voice and to have that opportunity to share your story. And of course, before we get to Skratch, I've also launched a subscription thing on Buzzsprouts for anybody who wants to donate to the show to help us to expand more of the platform. And what that does, it's going to help us go out more areas besides where we're at to do more investigations and more interviews, which John and I really want to do. And either meeting you or just hearing your story or other places you might have an idea to, hey, take a look at this area and doing some investigation. That's the point of it. It's not about making money for ourselves. It's about funding funding for the opportunity to expose the truth and expose the experiences at your pleasure, at your venture. So please do that. We would love that. You'll see it on this subscription when this podcast is produced and put out there. But Skratch, we're doing a part 3, and honestly, I gotta tell you this before we hit the record button. You have a lot more to say. This could be multi-parters, and honestly, everybody at the audience, this could be a once-a-month thing because, again, dedicated to the platform, which I want to give to Skratch. So, Skratch, how are you doing? What's new? What's happening? And yeah, brother, what's going on?
I'm doing well. Hello, everyone.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot more to it than what I've told you so far. There's a lot more. Okay, right. We're talking. So we're now not even ocean level. If we were at the tip of an iceberg, we're not even ocean level.
We're not at the Mariana Trench, is what you're saying,
right? Okay. The first thing I told you, as I told you in the podcast previously, seeing the blue light coming through the bedroom, that was a life-changing experience for me, as it would be for anyone in regards to UFOs. But this stuff goes way beyond just UFOs. In a lot of respects, it's the entire field of paranormal activity. It's not just this or just that. In the last episode, I told Chris to remind me about the French girl. And it's a beautiful story. I'll get to that.
Yep.
But to kind of pick up where we kind of left off last time, I was talking about the psychotherapist, the psychiatrist, who basically told me to go away, lose her number, forget that she even ever existed. Right. Because I terrified the woman. I didn't mean to scare her. I was looking for answers. Am I losing my mind?
But you know what though, Skratch? Here's what's interesting about your story with that. Because these are professionals who've heard a lot of different things from so much different areas, or the mentality of people, schizophrenia and all that stuff. But what's interesting to me is what scared them specifically of your details, because you're a guy with a sound in mind, just hearing the podcast, but something spooked them that was different than their other clients. I don't want to say subjects, clients. And they said, peace out, Boy Scout. We don't want to deal with you anymore. And that's where I go back, listen to the podcast we did a part 2, and I'm sticking to this theory, is there something bigger that they were warned about with you? And the reason I say that is because there's professionals. They're supposed to deal with all types of quote crazy, right?
Right.
But what was so scary about your story? That said, lose my number.
Well, I mean, a lot of things that I haven't even spoken about.
Go for it.
In this podcast. That's what I was telling her. A lot of the stuff that I told you on this podcast has been out of chronological order. The timeline hasn't quite lined up yet because when I started, we were just talking about the UFO experiences, not the other stuff. Okay. The other stuff, it was kind of, I don't know, how would you put it? I guess it would terrify anybody who comes from a professional background and has the study of the mind, the study of psychology, the whole thing. To hear somebody and have them sit across from you and tell them that they've seen things that most people have never seen, never experienced. I guess that she could tell I was being honest, I was being truthful. I was looking for, am I in my right mind? And for me to be asking her these questions, I think it hit her so hard that this man's not lying. This man's telling the truth, and these things probably do exist. And I'm just not ready to deal with that, you know?
So here's another thing that to add to that, is I'm wondering with this particular person, again, could have been government influence telling her, oops, there we go. Government influence telling her to back off you, or it could be some stories that she's heard that are so similar to yours, right? Maybe, and I go back to that movie, The Fourth Kind, right? Where that psychiatrist was doing so much similar stories with the people, the victims that are dealing with what you're exposed to. And I'm wondering if that just spooked her enough. I'm speculating, I'm reaching. Any thoughts?
I don't think that she was forewarned, because this was stuff that I'd never talked to somebody that I hadn't been involved with for a number of days, weeks, months, and years. Back in those days, the internet didn't even exist. My story was never out there. So
before you continue, what year was this, would you say?
1993.
Okay, that aligns. Okay, that makes sense what you're saying. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, there was nobody back in those days. DVDs really were just a new front edge technology. Okay, so you would rent VHS tapes, these big clunky plastic boxes that could break easily, screwed up all the time. My story hadn't been told to anybody. I hadn't said a word to anyone. If there was the government involved, then I'm a part of some program that I'm totally unaware of, and have been for all of my life, from the very time I was born, practically. Okay,
right.
So I don't think there's a file on me. I think that they definitely know every place that I've ever lived. I'll look that up on the internet, and when I heard about a program that, hey, they know everything about you, they know everywhere you've lived, where you've been, how long you were there, the whole thing. Yeah, that's true. But as far as my story, no, you're really one of the first people that have actually sat down and said this, and this, just in regards to UFOs, outside of the psychoanalyst.
Right. And like I said, the reason I bring that up is because it just tickled my brain why this person would just cancel you. And listen, I've been to therapy. I've been to a psychiatrist. I've been to therapy. I take medication for OCD because I'm crazy and stupid. Not stupid, but sort of stupid. But the thing is that when you deal with somebody who's supposed to be, quote, the referee in life, in your life, right, to make sense of things.
Right.
This is the first, I gotta say, that canceled you and said, we're done.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying basically to you. I knew I had a 1 hour session with this lady. I wasn't depressed, but I'd experienced a lot of things probably, I guess I was 93. I'd probably been around 25, 26 years old. I'd experienced enough at that point, just at that point in life, to say this is not normal. And I know that hallucinations aren't normal.
Right.
But is there something going on here that I'm unaware of? Some kind of sublime underlying, what is this?
So let me ask you this. So how many sessions that you had with this person?
The first and only.
Really?
Yeah. She didn't have, like I said, there was no way for anybody to get her a file. We had one session and that was it. She said, "You've told me enough to last me a lifetime. I'm done with you. Go away. Forget everything."
So if you don't mind, can you, I mean, is it the stuff that you've already shared with us in the podcast that you shared with her? Is there something that we're missing that you shared that really spooked her out? Can you elaborate more?
Okay. I probably told her about the time slip.
Yeah.
I had enough time to tell her about the time slip. I had the blue light incident only happened a few years prior.
Mm-hmm.
Not even that many years, really, 2 or 3 years before that. So I told her about that. I'm pretty sure I told her about that. And I probably told her about a few other things that have been kind of like synchronicity, okay, type of events. But I think it was probably the blue light that just freaked her out, because in those days, the government wasn't saying anything about UFOs.
Yeah, for sure.
You had to look at an old program like In Search Of or something like that.
Or like us that show sightings later on, right?
There you go. Yeah, you had to watch something like that to say, okay, these pieces fit with this piece.
Right.
People here in the South don't talk about those kind of things.
Hmm.
And for me to be sitting in in a doctor's element, and I'm talking about stuff that blows most people mind. I mean, how many people have you ever heard say that I saw light bent in a room?
Yeah, the light bent without any support of a mirror or any of that sort. It just bent by sheer will.
Yeah, and that was over 30 years ago.
Jeez,
I mean, you got to think, well, right at 30 years ago, maybe 28, okay, somewhere in there. For that was obviously not our technology.
right.
I don't think even if we do have the power of being able to fly craft like they're saying that we do, and the UFOs and stuff that we see are our guys. There's other stuff that I haven't talked about. I haven't even talked about yet with you that I know is real, because I've seen it where I'm living at now. Okay. So for them to bend light, that's just one little tiny little speck of the stuff that these things can do. One tiny speck. I probably told her about the deer that my mother and father found just a couple of weeks after that event.
Right.
And that may have been another thing that scared her. I'm not sure what scared her.
Interesting. And after that interaction with this therapist, psychiatrist, or whoever what the title is, right, have you ever contacted her afterwards to kind of?
No, I literally. She said she was done with me. Well, then, okay. Am I crazy? That was the last thing I said to her. Am I crazy? Am I going crazy? And she basically said, "No, you're not crazy. You're just somebody I really don't want to have much to do with, more or less."
Wow.
And her, you've told me things that I think you're telling me the truth. I think you're legit. I don't think you're losing your mind. I don't think you're hearing voices or seeing things that are not there. Because hallucinations aren't contagious.
Right. Okay? Exactly.
You can't catch something that you're seeing out of the corner of your eye, and the other person see it, and we both must just be Looney Tunes. There's some kind of gas or something in the air.
Right.
No, it doesn't happen.
Exactly. And the only time I think hallucinations would be something of a consideration would be if you're at some fair event where some hypno person was trying to hypnotize a bunch of people, right? And I've been to those things, and it sounds like that's not your thing. You're very simple. You're a simpleton, and when I say simpleton, is not in a bad way. You're like, hey, I do what I do. I come home and I do what I do back home. You're like, I live my life. I this is what I do, and so forth. And you're not asking for any of this stuff. You're not asking for any of this exposure. You're not asking for any of these experiences. And you're just sharing like, dude, this is happening to me. And when this person hears this, I just get this feeling in theory that this person knows more
There's
than,
a lot more. There's
yeah.
a lot,
Hey, you know what? Go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
but we can't get into it. This, like you said, we need to probably do this maybe once a month.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much here for me to reveal, and I'm still learning. I'm still up ahead of the curve. I'm still having
So,
experiences.
well, so see, you said that word reveal. Let's get on top of that. We're gonna move on past the therapy. What do you want to reveal in chronological order that you want to say on this podcast?
Well, if we stick just to UFOs, okay, it all kind of ties together.
Okay.
It all comes, everything that's happened in my life, it does come together. And it's as if the idea, and for me, okay, this is where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
The Matrix theory is real. Multiple universes are real. Multiple dimensions are real.
So when you say, hold on, when you say Matrix, are you talking about the Matrix, like the movies Matrix?
Similar, but not the same. We're not hooked up and we're not being used as a battery.
Okay.
Okay. Science has only just recently started coming out and saying, yeah, this is real. I've known this was real for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
I've known that this is not the only universe, that we're just one big bubble, and the bubble is growing up until a point it's going to stop growing and start collapsing on itself. Okay.
So with that being said,
Mm.
collapse on itself, right? These multi-universes, this quote Matrix.
Right.
What 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 do you think the end game is with all this stuff?
You keep ascending. You keep going. You don't stop. Okay. Life for a human being is very short. Mm-hmm. But think of trees. Trees can grow 300, 400, 500 years, 1,000 years. They can keep going and going and going. Right. Turtle can keep going and going and going.
Look at alligators. They don't die.
They don't. I mean, you have to basically kill them, and they're tough bastards to kill. Okay. But they have extremely long lifetimes.
Yeah.
I do know, I know this. This is not something I believe. Everything I've told you is not something I believe. This is something I know.
Okay.
Is that what's inside of you is a soul. Believe in God, don't believe in God, I don't care. It's not my thing. But you don't stop after you die. You keep going. Okay. You don't die and that's but the end. Okay, no, it does not that way. I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in hell. I believe there are other experiences that we're all going to be a part of. Some people have to come back here for some reason. Unfinished business. They love someone too much in this world, and they just couldn't fathom the idea of leaving them behind.
Well, what's funny? It's funny. I have a theory about that in regards to just a side note. Purgatory, what the Catholics call purgatory, right? Yes. Unfinished business, things that they can't move past on. They're stuck in between the veil. They're not one side of the veil or the other side of the veil. They're stuck in between the veil because there's some unquote unfinished business that happened to them, either tragedy, family, or other source.
Yeah, it goes back to ghosts. Like the last time let's go ahead and get this little part out of the way. It has nothing to do with UFOs. We're going to pick right up back on that. But
go for it.
I was in a place called Tybee Island. It's right outside of Savannah, Georgia. It's basically the beach. Okay, Savannah's not on the beach, it's close to the beach. But Tybee Island is a small little island. It's very quiet. There's not a bar scene really or anything like that. Right. It's just a place to go hang out in the sand, swim, go back to the hotel that's close by. Well, I've been out on the beach one day because it's only like 5 or 6 hours from where I lived. And I've been in the sun all day long. And so I was burnt. I was like a lobster. I was tryst.
Right.
So I was tired because I've been drinking beer in the sun all day, which doesn't help your sunburn, by the way.
It does not. It numbs it, but not helps it.
Numbs it, but it doesn't help it at all. Yeah. Because you're dehydrating yourself as you're drinking, and you keep drinking more, and you become more and more dehydrated.
Yep.
Well, I was laying across the bed, just resting my eyes. I'd had a shower, and I'm just trying to cool off. I know I can feel my skin just frying. So I was just trying to cool off. My ex-wife was in the bathroom. I mean, it was a hotel bathroom, okay, where everything's like in one room. something grabbed me on my right calf because I'm laying on my belly across the bed. I'm face down. Something grabbed my right calf. It squeezed it, not hard, but gently, enough for me to look up and see what's going on.
Right.
My ex-wife was in the bathroom, blow drying her hair. And she caught me out of the corner of the eye. And right when I turned and looked at her, I heard a young lady with a French accent, which would make sense for the area because that's just where everybody came over. They all went to Charleston, which is about 4 or 5 hours away from Savannah.
Okay.
And it said, what I thought it said was chassis. I thought it said chassis because it said it twice. Chassis, like a whisper, but it was in a French accent.
Right.
Chassis. Okay.
Chassis. Okay.
Chassis. And I'm like, okay. And I look at her, my ex-wife. She turned off the hairdryer and looked at me and said, "Did you hear something or see something?" And I said, "No, I felt something grab the back of my leg."
Right.
He said, "Me too." And I said, "That's strange." I also heard something. I heard a French girl say chassis. Okay. So I'm kind of freaking out. She's kind of freaking out. We're going out to dinner. We go to dinner. We have a few drinks at the place, and we go back. And it's another day of sun and fun. And the next day in the sand. Okay. When it comes to time for us to leave, I'm thinking I might want to check out the chassis underneath my truck. Maybe that's what she was trying to tell me. Because it took a long while for me to figure out to put the pieces together. It took months after that because the internet was really kind of new and just starting up. Google was not quite the big thing it was as it is now, but it was getting a lot of momentum back then. So I looked up a dictionary for French and I said, "What does chassis mean?" Okay. What she was saying wasn't chassis. She was saying chalice. And she was confirming that the human body is like a chalice. Now, a chalice holds wine. It's a thing that it's kind of like a cup.
Right.
So sometimes it's like a thing that you put wine in, and that's what you serve to a lot of people. She was calling my body the container of a fine spirit.
Right.
She was doing the same thing to my ex-wife. She was wrong about that, by the way, but she's not a fine spirit at all. She's evil, but that's beside the point.
No, I get it. So before you continue on that, it's funny you say that is because Bob Lazar, and you know Bob Lazar,
exactly
his claims with technology and excuse me, you know, technology, alien bodies, that sort. He talked about there's a government document that's about this thick, talking about us being containers, and that these beings created religion, again, allegedly, to maintain these containers that they're not defective. And so I'm curious if that is some type of synchronicity with what this French person was telling you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what she was trying to do, her attempt. If we look at unfinished business or whatever that was, this sounded much more, I won't use the word desperate, more like there's more to you than you know, kind of feeling I got from her. It was almost like a pleading. Please acknowledge that you've, and we made it apparent because I raised up off the bed. I looked over my shoulder and I said, she turned off the hairdryer and said, "Did you feel something?" I said, "Yeah, something grabbed me by the calf of my leg."
Right.
Which was just hanging off just the edge of the bed. Yeah. And Bob Lazar is not wrong. Bob Lazar, I believe, is telling the truth about everything he saw and all of the doubt. And it nearly destroyed his life. It destroyed his business at one point.
Well, absolutely. And Bob Lazar too. And people can debunk Bob Lazar all he wants. He made some mistakes in his life, which we all do, right?
Yeah.
We're human beings. But Bob Lazar pretty much put Area 51 on the map before it became discovered.
Yeah. And also, he talked about the element
115.
Yes, 115.
Yeah. And he had substance of that, which supposedly powered these vehicles, right? And I gotta give Bob Lazar a lot of credit.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's funny because I've always debated if he's true or not. I believe the guy's legit,
I
100%.
do. I do.
I believe the guy's 100% legit. It's just he's such an introvert. If you heard him do his interviews, especially recently, last 2 3 years, especially with things came out with the UAP, what we call UAPs, the government and all that stuff. He's such an introvert that he doesn't want to be in the spotlight. He's like, I'm
No,
just telling my truth. The reason he went out and told a story is like, listen, I'm telling a story because I don't want to die. I don't want to get killed. So it's like if I get martyred, it confirms my my claims, right?
right.
And of course, it's like on the other side, it's like, well, let him keep talking about his quote claims, and we'll just make him look like an idiot, right?
Yeah.
So forth. Um, so let's go to this French girl we talked about.
Hmm.
Go for it.
Well, she was a spirit. She was
Okay.
obviously a disembodied spirit. We call it.
Is this the same French person that touched your calf?
Yeah, yeah. When she
Okay.
did it, she whispered in my ear. You have to understand. It takes a lot. I mean, understand. You have to comprehend, basically, that for her to make a sound took a lot of energy. For her to grab my leg took a lot of energy. For her to do that, being a disembodied spirit. I mean, if you see a ghost, you see a ghost. Okay. I didn't just see a ghost. I felt one and I heard her.
Right.
And I mean, that took a lot out of her for her to do. In Savannah, Charleston, South Carolina, Georgia, we're one of the most haunted places in the world because so much tragedies happened here.
Right.
People have lost their lives coming to the new world. The minute they hit the beach, they die because somebody was attacked them, some kind of disease, starvation, literally. All kinds of terrible stuff has happened here, just awful stuff. And in some cases, this was kind of like she'd been around for it. It just felt like she'd been around for a very long time. Okay, well over 200 years. It just felt that way. I don't know how to describe it, but where we were located at was well over 200 years old. You
Right.
know, just the area is one of the
Well,
first.
and it could be older.
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, this would have been. I don't know when Columbus discovered America.
Quote 1492, right?
Right. Okay. Thank you. Well, when you look at that and you think about how many people have come from France, from England, from Spain, okay, and how many people have died on the shores the moment they hit the beach, even probably out in the ocean, for her to take it into consideration to tell total strangers, hey, there's more to you than you know. That impressed the hell out of me, you know. But I had to look it up because she said chassis, and I'm thinking she, according to the dictionary that I looked up on Google, well, almost 30 years ago now,
Yep.
said that chassis was a mistake, was a lot for the word chalice,
Right.
which would back into the cup, the bottle. What a great way to say, okay, you're a bottle, but what's really important is inside of you. It's not what you look like. It's not how tall you are. It's not how thin or skinny or fatter you are. Okay, or your personality. The fine spirits are inside of you, and I think that's the reason why we call liquor spirits today, is because
It's a very good point.
each bottle does have something that changes. It can change people. You know that. I know
Well,
that.
yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is like, and I always tie the paranormal with UFOs. And people say, what does that have to do with what does UFOs and aliens have to do with paranormal, Bigfoot, and all stuff? And I say this all the time. Nothing, dot to dot, everything.
Exactly.
And the reason I say that is because there's this veil. I go back to this veil, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there's something that's beyond us that keeps crossing our quote norm that we call a norm. And I think that the norm is something that is been created by our own society, by our own government, by
Yeah.
our own network of media, right?
Religion.
Because
Religion.
they're telling you this is normal. What you're talking about, Skratch, is not quote normal, right?
No, not at all.
But that doesn't mean it's not real.
But it is real.
But that's what I'm saying. It is totally real. That's the point. And I'm wondering these beings, and I kind of go this with these beings, these quote extraterrestrials, right? Especially the one I told you that I did a slight interview with, that I'm going to do an interview with this person later on in a couple weeks. Is that what is so special about us? If these extraterrestrials are coming to us, what is it because we have a soul and they don't? What's your thought process with that theory?
Well, we were going to get into that in future episodes because there's, like I said, there's a lot more to this.
I know, and I'm sorry if I'm sidestepping, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, they're looking for the things that we can't see. Okay, they're they are investigating humans that have souls. We all have souls. That's a given. What they're kind of looking for are the things that were never born. They're investigating the things that are out there that have never been born. Okay, and I'm gonna use the word angel. I'm gonna use the word demon.
That's cool. That's fine. Go for it.
They're the same thing. It just depends on what their mission is, on which way they're going to be perceived by the human being that they are here to do whatever they do to influence and change the future. It is the history. Yesterday was history. Okay.
Right.
They don't change history. They change the future. All these things deal with the future. They can affect synchronicity. They can affect time. They can affect, in fact, space. Okay. They can do things that we haven't even begun to dream about. And they're already there. And we may even already have that technology by being able to travel in time. Well, they can travel in time.
Well, it's funny. I do believe we can. I believe that there's something with our government.
Oh yeah,
that we can. That's why we have. That's why we have what's quote the Mandela effect, where we're remembering two memories, right? Something different that happened and something that's happening now.
Well, there's a lot of stuff to do with the Mandela effect. That okay, you want to hear something weird as shit?
Go for it.
I was on my way with 300 buddies in a car going from where we live into Charlotte, North Carolina to see Guns N' Roses.
Mm-hmm.
Time they were one of the biggest bands on the face of the planet. Guns N' Roses is coming to Charlotte. Wow, okay, you're lucky you got tickets for less than $100.
Yeah.
Okay. We were way up in nosebleed. We're on the way there. And we're, of course, drinking while riding.
You're right.
But I look over and I see a jet plane hung in the air. Just still as you can't see my fist, but if I hold my fist up in this like this right here, it was completely still, not moving at all. I don't remember. I wasn't close enough to be able to see if the rotors and the turbines were moving, but it was just stuck there. Okay. My buddies saw it. They're like, what the, it was bizarre. Now I've heard of jet pilots. I've heard of this happen to other people, not in the same place, but in other places in the country and other times and stuff like that, where they saw a jet just kind of stop. And they said, well, that's somebody that's pausing before they land. Right. I'm like, this guy should have landed well before we were able to drive up to him and then drive past him. He should have already been landed.
Right.
There's no plane that can stop like this one did.
Right.
Okay. And I kind of thought, well, that's a neat trick. They got somehow another a Mylar balloon to look like a jet, a big inflatable or something. And then the more I thought about it and reviewed the memory in my mind, that wasn't the thing. That was not something that an international airport would ever do. Why would you have a jet floating by an interstate, even though you're close to the airport? It couldn't happen. It wouldn't do that. That would be moronic because it would freak out people who are landing and taking off from the airport to see this jet just hanging off, off the runway. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've seen videos on that too, right? My theory is that these beings, and when I say this, is that they could be some off-breed of Nephilims. And the reason I say that is because the whole soul thing, right, is that they don't have a soul, and they're trying to counterfeit what a soul is. Because if you again, we're going back. I'm bringing up the whole religion aspect. Is that God gave us free will, and free will is to decide, create, and do what we need to do. And these beings cannot do any of that sorts because they're bound to God's laws because they're not the creation of man, right?
Right. Right.
So if they're if this is something they're trying to influence in a way, in a more malevolent way of to trying to create to accomplish their mission of their agenda, and then that's what's happening. And again I'm stretching really loosely on that because it's like well, if we can't do the things that God wants us to do, right? We call God, right?
Right. We can use
You
the word
know,
God.
yeah. Then how do we influence humanity to abide to what we want to do by doing these things?
Well, I don't think it's everybody is equally important. I think some people are more important than others. I
Mhm.
mean, there's only so many characters in the Bible that man decided, well, these stories are important, but we're going to ignore all these stories over here.
Mhm.
You know, the book that mentions the Nephilim, the books that mention um, certain events that were excluded from the Bible. There
Mhm.
was only so many pages we can have. Or if you look at the Roman Catholic Church, the library they have underneath the actual city is like what 50, 60 miles long. It's the
Oh,
library.
it's more than the CIA.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They have stuff
exactly.
down there. They have all kinds of inventions, creations, uh, some kind of device that you could see back into time. You just had to walk up and dial the number, what year and place, in wherever you were. That's what you would see happening.
Right,
You
right.
know, what do they call it? The coronavisor, the corona.
Oh, I know about the chronovisor. Yep.
Yeah, that thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you look at the big picture, and it's really hard to look at the big picture when you're only given little pieces at a time. For me to have so many pieces of a giant puzzle that I can't make this stuff up. I wish I could. If I could, boy, what would I be? I'd be a writer for Hollywood, right? I
Right.
can't make stuff. There's more than what I've told you because we don't have the time to really delve into every single little speck and particle here.
Right.
I wrote a book about it, but then I go back and I'm like, well, the book is about 400 pages long. Maybe I should shorten it.
Right.
Okay. Because I got more important things to say than about my experiences. What I feel are more of my experiences I can use to help somebody else get past what they're worried about, make their life
Right.
better for themselves. Look beyond the fear of dying. Look beyond the fear of dying because you're immortal. I'm immortal. We're
Well,
all
well, exactly, because energy cannot be created or destroyed, and that's
exactly.
physics. That's
Einstein said that. Yes, Einstein said it. You know, you can't be destroyed. You can't be. He also said, "Well, use rocks on the other side."
Mhm. Mm.
So I mean, it kind of okay.
What we call death is just a transition into a different phase beyond the veil, and that we can talk about that when it comes to what people call heaven, hell, purgatory, all that jazz, right? And and that's the thing. What makes us so special is that because I really think Scratch, the power is about free will and
It
free.
is. I mean, if there was such a thing as hell, if there was such a thing as heaven, there's a French spirit walking the sands of Tybee Island in Georgia,
Hmm.
going around telling people, "Hey, you're more than what you perceive.
Hmm.
You're a spirit. You're a chalice. You're holding a fine thing. Cherish that. Be a better person." And just one word. And it took, like I said, it took a lot of energy for her to.
What's interesting? What's interesting about that is that it goes back to the New Testament, Jesus,
Hmm?
right? His claims and what got him killed and crucified. is that there's the Holy Spirit there, well, there's just the kingdom of heaven's inside of us, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
that freedom that you're free. You're not, unfortunately, with the things that happen around you, we're not free. I mean, obviously, you and I both know that. Look where we're at today when it comes to government, when it
Yeah.
comes to taxes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we still have the freedom to make our own choice. And that's one thing, like me being in the financial field, it's like I deal with money, right? It's
Yeah.
like money is bullshit. It's
Well, it is bullshit.
it,
Okay.
yeah.
I hate to bring up a recent event, but the
Mhm.
kid that died he was a boy band. He just fell off of a balcony in Portugal or
Oh,
somewhere.
One Direction, that kid.
Yeah, that kid.
It's funny. It's funny you brought that up because I'm going to do a podcast on him.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested to hear what you have to say
Yeah.
because what they said was that he was doing meth the night he died, but he was also in the lobby of the hotel signing autographs.
Right.
And he said to somebody, I believe it was a young lady, he said, "Of course I'll give you $20,000. I've got $55 million. I'm more than wealthy. I can give away any money I want to."
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then, I mean, it was just kind of, in a way, it was kind of obnoxious
Mm-hmm.
to say, "Hey, I can give you $20,000. Not a problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 55 million." The money didn't save him. It's a horrible action. It's a horrible thing to happen to anybody to be that age, but for him to present himself as 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 thinking that money can buy anything. Money can't buy life.
No, exactly. It can't buy, well, it can't buy happiness. And that's why I try to tell people. There's plenty of people I've met who are poor as shit. And that and when I say poor as shit is because that's what we call poor as shit, right?
Right.
But they're happy as all can be.
Yeah.
And and
It
and,
should
and
be.
it's the simplest things. And neither any of us should ever judge that person. And I met those people before, right?
Right.
And so kind of going back what you're saying, you know, with we're talking about with money and not buying happiness is so money is such it's so I'm trying to put the word to it because I'm working on making you feel. I'm trying to put the best word to it for people to understand is that money is such a construct that has been implanted for us to say, hey, if you have money, you're going to be happy. That's not what it's about.
No, no, money may lead to prestige in certain circles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It depends on who knows you've got money and who perceives you to have money.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about perception than reality.
Right.
I've had all the experiences I've had, and I know there are people out there who spend millions of dollars just to have one single experience that I've had. Okay,
Yeah.
they would have to basically come and live with me, and hang around me for months on end before the next thing happens. The next thing that happens is going to be mind blowing. It's going to blow my mind, but I don't know what that thing is going to be. I don't know when it's going to happen. They would basically have to be beside me 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Right.
For no telling how it could happen next week. It could happen next month. It might not happen until sometime next year. But
right.
they'd have to mirror me, and that's just not going to happen.
Right.
Okay, that's
right.
just not going to happen.
Right.
So when you look at money from that aspect, there are people who would pay for the experience. So they go to places where people have been murdered. They go to places where there supposedly been ghost sightings. They go all across the country, the world, wherever, trying to find these things, and it doesn't happen spontaneously. I mean, it is very spontaneous. It doesn't happen on a regular schedule.
Yeah. Well, ghosts, those paranormal experiences are not. They don't care about money.
No, money's meaningless to them.
Yeah, exactly, because it's about their internal, like it's eternity, right?
Yeah, like
And,
this young lady,
yeah.
obviously a good person, trying to tell me, which something I already knew because of previous experience with spirits. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I saw my grandmother shortly after she died. I got up and thought it was my mother walking down the hallway, but I saw a distinct shadow walking just like my grandmother did because she had a gait and one of her legs was messed up a little bit. I
Right.
saw her many years before. It was the first time I'd ever really seen a ghost,
Right.
but didn't know it was a ghost because it was a shadow on a wall.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And I walked around the whole house, inside the house. I went outside, walked around the whole outside, thinking it was my mother because I was going to ask my mother a question. I go back in the house. My mother's been sleeping the whole time. So it was like the first time I ever saw something like that.
Wow.
And I've seen other things since then that would shake you to your core. But it's not like they're trying to scare people. It's just that they're existing. You know, people get fear of the unknown. And this is an unknown kind of thing.
So when we talk about when it's unknown and fear, do you think these spirits, like us, right, that cross over? Yeah, again,
right,
I mean, I'm gonna keep the term simple, crossover, because that's what
right.
you can identify with.
Cross the veil, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that they have fear and concern and worry as well?
No.
Okay.
No. I do think there's a system on the other side where they do things, they do some things basically so they can feed themselves. Not really feed themselves like we feed ourselves, like we eat,
Right.
but in trade for maybe a better future, a better something. Okay.
Well, it could be to accomplish a purpose.
It very well could be. There's some kind of an agenda here. There's some kind of agenda. That much I've picked up on in my time. I've seen far too much to not understand that there's an agenda, and it has nothing to do really with mankind as a whole. And we're meaningless to them. Certain people are very important, but not everybody. And I hate to say that, but not everybody gets to have these experiences.
And so why do you say that? Why can't everybody have these experiences?
I think anybody can have the experience. I just don't think that they're chosen to, because they don't know how to perceive it. They wouldn't know what to do with it if they were shown something like that. I think it's shattered people that I've said, hey, their ghosts are real. I got an in-law.
Yeah.
Doesn't believe in God, didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in this, that, and the other. He's a wonderful, very kind.
So what's the hope for humanity, you think, when it comes to that?
Well, like him, he didn't believe me until he saw his own spirit in his yard, a little cat. Okay. He said, I saw that cat and it flipped me out. And he was looking at me with just awe. And I'm like, yeah, I've tried to tell you they're real. I've told you for years. Ghosts are real.
Right.
Animals especially. If they loved you in their life, they're going to love you when they've crossed over the veil. They're not just going to abandon you unless they've been called to a higher purpose.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny a little about animals is that they're so pure in their instinct, and that they're so loyal. It's funny. Yes. And when I say that is because for example, so when I go to Petco to buy food for my pets and everything, my cats and chickens, all stuff, they ask for a donation. I totally do donation. When I go to a store and ask for a donation for people, I'm like, nope. And it's not because that I don't want to help people. It's because it's like I love to help animals because it brings us back to the synergy, the whole point of what is to be unconditional loving, right?
Exactly.
And that's what I love about animals, and their sense. Like when I look at my cats or anything and they see something's going on, I'm like, I trust what they're seeing, right? Because they have that better sense than we do. They don't have they're not disrupted by technology like we are, right?
Right.
So
no, they can see different things that we can't see.
Yeah.
There are things all around you, all around me, all around this planet, existing in different dimensions, and they can see into those dimensions. We got a little chicken. We let her out every night to walk around the yard, and sometimes she'll just freeze. There's not a predator in the area. She's in a fenced-in yard. Nothing can run up on her, but she'll just freeze, and she looks terrified. She can see something that I can't see. She knows something that's there that I don't know. I can't see it. And we have, the same thing with other animals. They're paying attention to me. They're paying attention to me for some reason. Not my animals, but these other things that basically are just walking around. Not all of them can fly. Not saying that all can't fly, but some of these things are basically they have to walk and they have no other choice. And animals can notice that. They can see into different perception because of the light spectrum. We can only see a little narrow little parcel of the light spectrum.
Right.
That doesn't mean that all animals can't see on levels outside of that. You know, like dogs can supposedly see only in black and white. They can't see any other. They don't see colors, but they can see other things that are beyond that spectrum.
I totally 100% agree with that. So I'm gonna bring you back a bit. What I'm trying to think of the best question here. With your experiences talking about time slips, UFOs, paranormal, what do you think is the agenda behind the purpose of why this is happening? Is the veil becoming thinner? Is it because the government knows something and there's a whole agenda about it? What's your thoughts behind all this happening? There's a lot happening, buddy.
How many hours do you have?
You know what, and hold, and no, you know what, hold on to that question because we're gonna do at least once a month. It sounds like it sounds like what's gonna do.
I mean, because
But,
yeah,
but get me started on your thoughts.
okay. Um, as time goes by and you live your life every day,
Right.
and you're having to do menial things, you're having to go to work, you're having to do this, you're having to do that.
Right.
These things happen to me to make me just stop and observe.
Mhm.
Okay, there numerous times there's been interaction. There's been I saw this, I saw that, I saw this, I saw that.
Right.
And while my memory of it all goes back to when I was a child,
Right.
I think it's I'm being kind of put through the ringer so that when I cross to whatever higher purpose I have, decades, centuries, millennia down the road from who I am now, I
Mhm.
will not probably remember who I am now.
Mhm.
But what I've learned here, I will have carried with me through time and be able to utilize that.
Is that a form we call reincarnation?
No, yeah, sort of, but you're not necessarily coming back. Reincarnations when you come back to planet Earth.
Right.
Okay, you die, you go meet somebody. They say go back to Earth.
Well, okay. Let me rephrase it. Spiritual carnation. Spiritual reincarnation.
Yeah, spiritual incarnation. I could wind up in another dimension. I could wind up in another time, not literally a time, but another part of this universe or another
Well,
universe entirely.
that is an interesting theory because when we pass, how do we know we end up back in our own realm?
Probably won't. I think I. My thing is, and I've always thought this since I was a kid. I've never felt like I was uh, normal. I've never felt like I never felt like I was normal. I never felt like I was like my mother and father.
Mm.
I had a different accent than they did. They said, "Why don't you have a Southern accent?" We have a Southern accent. I've got a Southern accent now because I've been around so many Southern people. But when I was 8 or 9 years old, why don't I have a Southern accent?
Right.
And I was surrounded by just people who spoke with a Southern accent. I still have a Southern accent. It's just not as developed as it should be. Okay, we're talking deep South here. So I've never felt like I was normal. I've always felt kind of out of place, not really outcast, but just not like the other people around me. And it's not. It's just a feeling. I think this is my first incarnation here on this planet, and I definitely want it to be my last. I don't want to stay here. I want to basically go where no man's gone before, if you want to quote Star
Well,
Trek.
yeah, no, exactly. And that's I think that's like for me, I'm gonna echo what you're saying. That's for me too. It's like to keep discovering, not just in the physical form, just to have at least my conscious to discover what else is out there, right?
Right.
To discover what we have not discovered yet, the enlightenment, the knowledge, and also the love, right? The love behind it all. And I feel like with again, the audience out here, when it comes to paranormal, when it comes to UFOs, when it comes to cryptozoology, it all ties the same. And you can say one or the other. And I say that if you separate those two, it's because of dogmatic religion, either native, either Christian, either something else. There's something that ties it together when we collaborate, and that's the thing we need to do is collaborate our experiences to try to understand what's behind the veil. And
Yeah,
did I kind of make sense a bit about that?
you nailed it. Okay, you nailed it. We need to be beyond. We need to be beyond judgment. And
Mhm.
what is the one thing in the Christian religion they always do? They judge others.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the things that Jesus didn't enunciate enough. He didn't say you should not judge others. In fact, he said it in one of his
No,
verses. The first one with the first of you without sin cast the first stone against this
exactly.
one who's about. Okay, they didn't. He didn't. Mankind. I'm not saying him, but mankind didn't focus on that one thing enough.
Yeah.
Instead, they taught and preached that there is a hell, there is a heaven. If you're a good boy, you go to heaven. If you're a bad boy, you go to hell.
Yeah.
I think it's beyond that simple little concept. The threat of having people should be good people without having to be threatened to be, but they're incapable of it. You have to threaten them to don't drink and drive,
Right.
don't text and drive, don't do this, don't do that. And there's a good reason for these rules and these laws. There's a good reason for them. It's because you're trying to keep the rest of the community safe from your stupidity.
Well, you know what, too, to add to that, Scratch is like when you create these rules in that sense, and yeah, they're good rules. There's good rules for a reason. That sometimes it also creates a negative aspect where it's like, well, I can't do this, so I'm gonna punish this person for this.
And that happens a lot. That happens a lot.
Exactly. You know where I'm going with it, right?
Right, right.
And it's like there shouldn't be any. We have to have grace on people. We have to have grace on everybody. And but where does it start? And I love this, and I'm paraphrasing scripture. Love the Lord through all your mind, heart, body, and soul, but love your neighbor as yourself. And what got me over the years is love your neighbor as yourself. Well, love yourself.
Love yourself is the most important thing that we, yeah,
Exactly. And if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love others?
you can't. I
Exactly.
mean, you really truly can't.
Exactly.
Okay. Um, I would love to say that love is the answer. Okay. But love is clearly not the answer because it's not shared enough in the world for me to say love is the answer. Okay. Live and let live is probably the better kind of saying like that. Like if you do something I don't agree with, that might not be for me.
Well, exactly.
But where's the point to say that you can't do that? You know?
That's the thing too, is that we in our society, and screw the politics. I don't care about the fucking politics. What I say about this is that if we can love ourselves, we create a tolerance. And again, not understanding, it's a tolerance
Yes.
to others around us. And to me, I think what dissolves the veil, and tell me if I'm wrong, again, theory, what dissolves the veil is love, is acceptance, and with other people around us. Because
Yes.
I think that we live in such a judgmental society in this world,
Yes.
and it's such egotistical. And by the way, I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that ego.
Oh yeah. Everybody is.
Yeah.
Everybody is. Okay. Everybody is okay. It took me decades to realize that a lot of stuff that I had been taught since I was a child was wrong. That it went in the opposite of what I was thinking it was something else.
Mhm.
In the South, we say, bless your heart.
Mhm.
Okay. Chris, I was 40 years old before I found out that the term, which I thought had always been something kind and loving and gentle, bless your heart, really meant fuck you. Okay. Just like have a nice day out in the Midwest, it means fuck you. Okay. If you
It's
say that,
about tone, buddy. It's about tone.
have a nice day. Yeah.
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 No, these people here, they use the sweetest bless your heart. Okay. They're not being sarcastic. They're not being um, derogatory in any way or form. They're literally saying, this is a nice way of saying fuck you. And they said it to me, I don't know, my whole life.
Right.
And I'm like, I was 40 years old when I found that out. And I'm like, I'm thinking back to all the sweet people who weren't sweet at all. that said those very words. And I'm like, so that's what they were meaning.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with a society that has like a double-edged sword. They say one thing, they mean another.
Right.
And that needs to end. I mean, it needs to end, but it won't. This is going to keep getting more and more spastic. It just becomes more and more egregious. People to say things to other people that they don't mean.
Yeah.
And that's where lies come from. Imagine how many people lie just because they can't. And the politician, I know you hate politics. I hate politics. Okay. But that's where it kind of comes from.
No, exactly. Well, exactly. And for me, I'm too Catholic. I can lie for like 5 minutes, and then I totally sell myself out. I'm like, no, I didn't mean it that way. you know,
Right.
and there's pros and cons to that too, right? And yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm wondering about with what we're dealing with in both the paranormal UFOs is the aspect of unconditional love. And maybe love is not the right word or partial the word is unconditional sacrifice, unconditional selflessness, like the bigger picture, the bigger purpose that we're so focused on what's around us, but we're not focused on what's the bigger picture above us, besides us. Like example, we call things paranormal, right? But
Right.
what about, but here's the thing. People call paranormal, they put it in this box of like, oh, it means ghost and all this other stuff, but paranormal can mean other things. Paranormal
Oh,
parachute, parasailing, para that. What does that mean? Para is above
right.
norm, the side of the norm, and that's my cause. It's like if we had a bigger picture, and it's not a creating religion, it's creating a fact that there's something bigger than us that we can experience and depend on, and we don't have to seal it. That's the problem with our reality. And sorry for going on tangent here is that we keep going with the seeing is believing. How about seeing is feeling?
Yeah. I mean, okay. I've had psychic events my entire life.
Mhm.
Stuff that I knew was going to happen. If I go down that path, this is going to happen. I know it will, so I avoid that path.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times that has saved my ass for me doing things that I knew if I do this, something else is going to happen, or it's going to inflict on somebody else and make something happen to them. That's kind of ties in with synchronicity.
Mhm.
What you do here, what we're talking about now, somebody listening to this podcast, they're going to go with what we were talking about. And hopefully they will use it to their benefit to change their world or someone else's world, their way of viewing things, their way of seeing things, their way of thinking about things. That's my goal by talking with you, Chris. Okay. It's to benefit people. It's not to hurt people. I don't want to tell people that stuff that was terrifying to me, but would leave them with never being able to sleep again.
Right.
If they need to hear that, then I'll tell them.
Right.
But I try not to go too dark because there is some definite darkness here. You can be harmed by these things. You can be hurt by them. A ghost will never hurt me. Bullshit. A ghost can do things to you that you really don't want to have happen. Okay.
Well, I think it also goes back to intent, right? And when I say this, and I'm theorizing. I'm not trying to cover religion. I'm not who got enough religions out there. Is the intent of what you're trying to discover? If you're trying to find intent to have a negative experience, you're gonna have negative things happen. If you're trying to have the intent to have an experience positive outside of the experience, then things will happen, right?
Right.
And so, you know, so with what's going on in our society, what's going on with our world, with
Right.
everything that's happening, I'm gonna stay right now. I'm not claiming the word seeing is believing, seeing is feeling, because seeing is feeling is about our own personal experiences.
Right.
It's because we can see a lot of things, and a lot of people see a lot of things, and unfortunately, in our society, we see things that happen all the time, but yet we would never claim it to be real. To me, it's about the emotional aspects. To me, it's what's happened in the person in their heart, and to me, when it happens, that person in their heart amplifies what's around them. And that to me, I think that's what drives these entities. That's what drives these spirits. It's about what they're feeling, what they're harvesting in their soul.
No, I think it's also a directive.
Yeah.
Okay, we let's say we see a UFO. I've seen UFOs. Right. I know they're real. I have no doubt they're real. I have no doubt at all. There's a directive. In other words, someone, something sent them to be here.
Right.
Okay. They never leave. They never leave. Some of them are stationed here, like at Skinwalker Ranch, for instance. Okay. Right. There's a UFO right now that's been stationed, not literally in my front yard, but I can look out from my front porch, and on occasion, if you camped out in my yard for a week, I'm sure that you would see evidence of it.
Yeah,
it's there. It's like it is positioned there.
Right.
A whole series of events basically brought me to this place where I'm living at now, to be able to look out the door on occasion and see some really, really beautiful things happening in the sky that don't make any sense at all. Okay, it makes no sense in the logical state of mind. The logical state of mind being the way that normal people perceive the world around them. For me, it's logical. For me, it's normal because I've already been through these experiences over here that have brought me up to date and said, yeah, this stuff is real. Have I been abducted? More than likely. Quite probably. I'm almost ready to say 100%. I just don't remember the event. Okay.
Can I ask you this?
Sure.
Have you been potentially abducted? Have you thought about hypnotherapy?
I've thought about it, but it's finding a hypnotherapist that I could trust.
Yeah.
You know, someone that I could trust, because I have trust issues. I have trust issues with people, like severe trust issues. I know what can be done with hypnotherapy. I know what can be done that way. I know what can be done. I've already had one psychotherapist tell me, "Hey, go buzz off. Don't bother me again because you freak me out." Right. Basically, okay. Me to try to go back into that realm of saying, "Okay, I'm gonna sit down and try to have someone hypnotize me." No, there's not much of a chance of that. Yeah. Okay. I think if I was meant to remember it, because I remember all this other stuff, all this other really weird stuff. Yeah. That one event was probably the one thing that I'm blocking out for a reason.
Right.
Okay. There's a good reason I'm blocking it out. Right. Something happened that night. I probably wouldn't want to remember. I've got so many other strange memories that I've been allowed to have and keep, and we haven't even talked about yet. Right. That's just one thing. I'm not afraid of it. I'm just not so sure that I want to know.
Fair enough. And, yeah. You know. Yeah. No. Fair enough. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to end the podcast with that sentiment because I want to continue from that conversation. And like I said, everybody tonight, we're going to do this. It's a multi-potter, excuse me, a Palta. I'm thinking Palta, like Harry Palta. We're going to do a multi-potter with this, with Skratch, because he has a lot to say, and a lot of knowledge. And I think in Skratch, and honestly, I really feel like what we're talking about is tying a lot of things together with both the paranormal, UAPs, even cryptids, into one bunch. And I definitely want to continue this because I think there's something that we as society have the right to know what's going on in the realm that we exist in. That's always been there. Except the problem is that it's been deleted because of the quote norm. Am I right about that, Skratch?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and when I say that is because I think it's a control factor to expanding our freedom, expanding to control our expanding of independent thinking, which we all have the God-given right to have. And and that's my thoughts with it. So everybody tonight, and Skratch, stay on for a little bit. We'll talk afterwards. Is everybody tonight? This has been a very intense episode. This is the part 3, which is definitely more intense with Skratch. And this is gonna be a once a month thing because he has a lot to say. I'm gonna tell you right now, this guy has a lot to say. And how can you reach us? boundtotruth34@gmail.com. Comments, questions, answers, insults. Want to take me on a date? I would love that because I'm lonely. Also on Bound Truth at X, Facebook, Spotify, Apple, Buzzsprout. Definitely Buzzsprout for the subscriptions. Also Podbean and YouTube and a few other platforms. So please definitely reach out to us, expand the platform like we're doing with Skratch, and have your story told. We want to hear about it. Anywho, have a great night. Godspeed, and see you on the other side.